Hey guys, wanted to talk about what I'm doing right now to the car, and review some products that I think is good if you're trying to sand your car down without necessarily sandblasting the car, or you're doing things in sections, or you don't have the money to spend on getting the car down to the frame and then afterwards getting a body cart, towing it to a uh, a spot to get it sandblasted or acid dipped. So that is what I'm talking about now. So how are we getting all the rust out, or how are we getting down to metal? Or, well, better yet, the more significant question is why to get down to metal. Well, when you are restoring a car and you're not the single owner, you may not know what the person before you did. For instance, on this car, someone really liked to braze versus anything else. I don't know if that came factory or not. I didn't like it because you can weld the same section, but they brazed it. So I didn't like that. So what I did was, and not to mention, I don't know whoever did whatever they did. So sanding down to metal gives you a clear, clean baseline to build up from, so you know personally what's on your car. So products. Well, the products I'm using for killing the rust, which is a big problem on most old cars, is I'm using sanding disc, or cleaning disc as they're called, and I wanted to talk about some of those products and how they work and what kind of finish they give you. Okay, so, and also what are we doing for the more important areas, like the inner frame structure, for instance, like the inside of the rocker panel, which, all these components, if you don't actually take off, it's virtually impossible to get to. So I'm going to talk about those. So where are we starting? Well, let's start with the cleaning disc. For all of the car, I am using this type of cleaning disc. It's a 3M cleaning disc. It gives you equivalent to about an 80 grit finish. But the difference between these is that they're porous. So for one, they won't heat up the metal because they have pockets to allow, the metal to breathe. And also, they give you a nice clean finish. It'll go over rust, it'll go over everything. It'll just clean it all up. So, different assortments. That one is a 7-inch. Now, over here, we have it's like a 4-inch. This will go on an angle grinder. Okay? So for the big sections, the big flat sections, I'll use the 7-inch. For the smaller, more intricate areas that I really can't get to too easily, but I still want to clean it up relatively quickly, I'll use this 4-inch one on my angle grinder. So that's that. The 7-inch would be used on a buffer. Eastwood makes a kit that you can buy for doing that, so that's fine. The next thing, for the really tight areas, is going to be this Rolock cleaning disc. So this would be used in the more tight areas where you could put it on your air tool, and you can see it. Now, for the next section, for the inner frame structure, you can't sand that. It's impossible. You can't get in there. So what you do for that is, Eastwood again, they make an internal frame coating. And I've talked about this product before, but I'm going to go in. I'm just doing an overview as to how we're killing the rust everywhere. Because, when you see all these nice shiny cars that go into auctions for umpteen amounts of money, all you're seeing is the outer skin. If the whole car wasn't taken apart or built up with brand new panels, you're going to have to worry about, or you should be worried about, how are you going to do with the rust that's in the places you can't get to easily if you're not changing everything out. I am not changing my rocker panels out because they don't need changing. So what I'm doing for that is you get this internal frame coating, and it comes with this hose. This hose at the end of it has a focus, okay. It has a nozzle on it that's kind of funny looking. It actually sprays 360. You just stick it in like a hole over here, and you stick it through, and you go crazy. And you can stick it in pretty much this entire length, and it goes pretty deep, and you have plenty of holes and plenty of gaps to get something like this into, which is why they made the product, because they understand that on your clean car that you think you've sanded or you can see, even sandblasted or you can see, you still got this in the inner frame structure. So that is some of the critical tools that you're going to need, or I suggest getting for doing the car. So in terms of finish, this is what that 7-inch pad did. This was initially greened, and it sanded it down to have this finish. Now, the next thing you should take note of is if you're going to chemically treat this, you're going to get flash rust. It's going to flash very quickly, much more than if you mechanically treated this. I did this section weeks ago, and it still looks like this, because mechanically treating a car to removing the rust or removing the paint will last longer without being painted than if you chemically treat it or sandblasting. Soda blasting is going to be different because it actually leaves a residue on the car that protects it. So those are things to take note of. Again, this is what a sanding disc does. There's actually also a sanding disc. Actually, I believe it's a bigger version of this one that'll put on a 320 grit. It'll be equivalent to a 320. This one is equivalent to like an 80. So both great products. Now, one extra thing to take note of, if you look at this roof, you see these little spots? Those will not come out with a sanding disc. You need something like a self-etching primer. Sorry, not a primer. A self-etch. And that self-etch will convert the rust. It will also allow this panel to accept being painted. It actually creates little pores in the metal to accept the paint chemically. So I have to chemically treat here with a self-etch. Well, there's also an alternative for cleaning up rust. You can use it for your tools, you can use it for your car, and what that is, it's a concoction of something you can make at home very cheaply versus going out and buying gallons of rust converter. And that is vinegar. Vinegar will, it's an acid. Any acid will basically do it. Some acids are stronger than others, but vinegar is a mild base acid that is for mild rust that you can use. You make, I believe it's 1 part vinegar, 3 parts water, depending on the rust. You can play with the mixture, and it will convert it. It will convert the rust to like a black oxide coated section that is rust free. It's just converted to rust, so it's good to paint over at that point. And just understand that with any acid, it could be muriatic acid, which is another great acid for cleaning off rust, where vinegar water doesn't do the job. Muriatic acid will. And just note that, again, with those type of products, you use it, you have to neutralize the acid. And to neutralize the acid, you have to use water. So immediately after you're done, it's cleaned up, then you want to soak it in water or wash down the car if you're doing it in the car, or whatever tool you're going to use or do it with. You just have to make sure to neutralize it afterwards before you actually put any kind of primer on it. So that is my 2 cents on some of the things that I'm using to, or all of the things that I'm using to clean up. And if you're going to use that, a handy little thing is to get one of these. Solo makes it. It's like $15. It is the greatest. This is the greatest thing in the world. I could buy a gallon of my Prep-All or my cleaning agent for cleaning down metal, and I could just stuff it in this, and it's much cheaper. This is $17, a gallon of Prep-All, which is a cleaner for painting. Auto Body Tool Mart makes it. They also sell it on Amazon, and you can put it in there and then go crazy spraying and clean up whatever metal. I've used it on this, so this section is good to go. And what I'm planning on doing is I'm going to sand down the whole thing, and then I'm pretty much going to use lead in anywhere that needs it, and then afterwards I'm going to epoxy, and then afterwards any filler I'm going to use it on top of that, because it is recommended that if you're going to use lead, or body solder as it's called, that you don't put your Bondo or your whatever, filler you're going to use on that. The other thing is, anything that I'm going to use as a filler on this car is going to be aluminum filler. A little harder to work with, bleeds through a little bit more. You're going to have to use a primer with it, or a couple more coats of primer, like sometimes a primer surfacer, to hide it. But the difference between that and regular Bondo is that it won't shrink, and it also has little bits of aluminum in it. It's also harder to sand. It's not something that you want to use on a daily driving vehicle to do your body work. It's a specialty filler. You're not going to even find it at AutoZone and things like that. You may find it, but it's not going to highly sell. It's one of those types of coatings that you would use primarily for car restoration. It's flexible, doesn't shrink, and it's also what the masses find to be a good replacement for lead in areas like your quarter panel joint where it meets the roof. Like here, this is lead. So I'm going to keep this lead, and then I'm going to continue it on for joints like here and joints like here. That way, when the body flexes, because bodies flex, I'm not going to have to worry about the filler cracking, because it won't be filler, it'll be lead. And anywhere I'm using filler, if it flexes, then I'm going to use a filler that also flexes, which is the aluminum filler. So that's that. Now the other thing is, if you're going to use lead, or the reason why you use lead or body solder is because that region flexes a lot, and you need something that'll be good on the car, and will also flex with it and won't crack. And the rule of thumb is that wherever you want to put body solder is going to be in regions that experience high stress. That might be difficult to see, but it's usually going to be in areas like here. If you're going to do any kind of lead work, it'll be to here or to here, which experiences high stress. Here experiences high stress. Your quarter panel to roof experiences high stress. Anything that moves is going to be stressed. So please take note. All right, that is all I got for now. Yeah, till next time.